What is going on, everybody? It's Ryan Storch here, and today what we're going to be doing is just breaking down what happened in the real estate market in Coppell, Texas in the last 12 months. So what I did is I went to the MLS and I downloaded everything that happened in the last 12 months in Coppell, and I broke it all down in a report, and we're going to be talking about that right now. But before we get into it, though, if you're actually in Coppell and you're like, what is my home worth? That's a great question, and I made a GPT just for you to answer that question. What I did is I trained a GPT on the last 12 months of data and aggregates and all things Coppell related. So you can just plug in your address, your neighborhood, and some other things about your house, and it gives you a good range of what your home could actually sell for in today's market, based specifically actually on the data. If that sounds good, you just click the link in the description below and you'll be able to see it. Okay, get into this now. So in Coppell, there were 366 homes that sold in the last 12 months, okay? Also, the median sales price was $630,000. And the total sales volume, aka the amount of real estate that was actually transacted, was just under $250 million. Just for some context, in Flower Mound, this number right here is almost $700 million. So, but this is still, still quite large. $250 million of real estate. So just good enough to set the scene. So let's look at homes that have actually specifically sold in Coppell. So one thing to look at in particular is the median days on market. So what the median days on market is it's essentially how long does it take for a home, once it goes up on the market, for it to then receive a contract, to then go under contract. And in Coppell in the last 12 months, that median, so like if you took all of the homes that sold and you spread it out across one big table, you took the one right in the middle, that's 18. That's what that means. So just under 3 weeks. All to say, like, if you still have a home that's on the market and it's been over 18 days, you could say that you might be overpriced, all to say, or something else might be wrong with it, might be wrong with the house. But 18 days is going to be your median. And then another big indicator here is that 1 in 3 homes actually sold in less than a week. So basically, 33% of all homes that went on the market in Coppell went under contract in less than a week. And what we'll see is that a big indicator of that, of why that actually happens, is because those homes are priced, they're priced right. Okay? This is what I'm seeing in the market right now, specifically in Coppell, is that if a home is priced right, it sells fast. If a home is not priced right, it will sit. Okay, so in June, this is 2025. In June of 2025, the median days on market was 13 days. Okay, and then July went to 24, back down to 18, then 25. October was 24, November was 24. So we're creeping up towards a month. But then December it actually drops a little bit to 22. But what you'll find is that, so this is December of 2025. Okay, and this is January of 2026. People that listed homes in January of 2026, those homes sat on average, or in the median, for 43 days. So we cross over a month. So once if you list in January in Coppell, your time on market for how long it takes you to actually go under contract basically doubles from December. And then if you go into February, it creeps up even a little bit more and goes to 45 days. So that's basically a month and a half that a home is actually sitting on the market in Coppell. But then look how wild of a change this is once you actually list your home come the springtime. So once you list your home, this is March of 2026. From February to March, it decreased by 50%. The median days on market went to 23. So from a month and a half back down to about just 3 weeks. So there is a huge play and help if you're a seller in Coppell of whenever you're talking about when you should actually put your house on the market. If you do it in January or February, it could hurt you. But if you do it in March, it can actually significantly help you. Okay, those are checks. But watch what happens whenever we go deeper into the spring and summer. So this is us right now. This is right now. But in April, it went down from 23 to 12. So it dropped by another 50%. And then in May, it goes down to 10. And then in June, we are right now, if a home goes on the market in June, it is under contract in basically 6 days. Very different than what happens in Coppell in January and February. So the point here is that in this very messy graphic, the point here is that if you are thinking about selling in Coppell, right, in the near future, we are creeping up. So this is us last year right here. We are creeping up whenever the days on market starts going up, but it doesn't get too significant until the end of the year. So we are still in a pretty good season to sell. But in the last 30 to 60 days was the prime season, and the next probably 30 to 60 days is going to be the subprime, but still pretty optimal season to actually list your home on the market in Coppell. Okay, let's move on. So something else I wanted to call out here is that sellers, you end up getting the price if you price it correctly. That's the big asterisk or star. So the first point of data here is that 97%, homes sold for 97% of their original asking price on average in Coppell. So basically, on average, if you looked at all homes that sold in Coppell in the last 12 months, homes are going to be selling for about 3% under list, all things being considered. But something really critical happens here that I want to point your attention to. So on average, basically, homes sold for 97% of their original asking price, but also 31% of all homes sold at or above the list price. So what this means is that nearly a third of all homes actually sold over asking price, if not right at asking in Coppell. So this 97%, so that 3% gap, right, that 3% under ask, that's just going to be, the reason why that is because a lot of homes actually sold for significantly under the original asking price, which meant that a lot of homes actually had to drop their price because homes started really high. And that's really going to hurt you. So we want to be in this camp, okay? And the way that you're in this camp is if you price your home essentially at or even a little bit below the market. I think of pricing like a bow and arrow. So if you have a bow, right, if you hold the arrow right at the bow and you price it right, basically consider this pricing. And if you hold the arrow right at it and you just let it go, the bow's just going to fall. You're going to get right what you want. But if you pull it back a little bit under market, and then you let go, you actually end up, for the most part, getting more of what you could have gotten than if you just would have listed right at market. Because what happens is that if you price it a little bit under market value, people go, wait, that home in the Birch Streets is only worth X? Wait, I need to get my mom out there, I gotta get my mother-in-law out there, I gotta get my friend, I gotta get Susan, I gotta get the person from Jay Macklin's, I gotta get everybody out there to look at this house in the Birch Streets. And that brings multiple eyes, which brings potentially multiple offers, aka a bidding war starts happening, and you end up selling it for a higher price. Okay, let's look actually at a trend of sales price over a month-to-month period in thousands in the last year. So these are numbers, these are in thousands, okay, over here. So in June of 2025, the median sales price was just over $500,000 compared to right now, June of 2026, the median sales price is right around $700,000, which is quite significant. And you'll see that as we go throughout the year, so here's June, we go around summer, the sales price goes up, 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 and then it drops a little bit, and then it goes back up, and then it drops down into December, it goes back up, and then there we go. This is not a graph that shows the appreciation of Coppell per se, because this is all homes in the area. We're not just tracking the value of one home. Really what this is showing is at what time of the year are homes of certain values trading for. So we can see that the homes that are, more first-time home buyer under 500,000 or so, those homes are going to be trading more frequently in the November, December range and in the January, February range. But the homes that are going to be more expensive, buyers are more willing to actually purchase those homes, surprisingly, in January and in, the May, June type months. So this is actually really interesting, January being a month that can happen in. But I'll just say, this isn't as much of this is how prices rose in Coppell over the last year. It's more so if you have a home that's worth, that's more expensive here, you're actually better off getting the better pool of buyers if you actually listed in January and if you list in the spring, which we all know the spring is going to be a prime time for listing. Okay, let's keep going. There's something really important here that I want to point out, and it's that 68% of all homes that sold in Coppell actually sold for less than $750,000. Okay, so if you look here, there was 115 homes that sold for under $500,000. There was 135 homes that sold for in between $500,000 and $750,000. 79 homes sold between $750,000 and $1 million. 30 between $1 and $1.5 million, and 7 were over $1.5 million. But basically, 70% of all homes sold for under $750,000. So something that can be really pertinent for you if you were thinking about listing your home in Coppell is that if your home is, you think it's probably worth right around $750,000, you might actually consider underlisting it underneath $750,000 to collect the larger buyer pool that's looking in Coppell right now. And then if you do that, because people that are, they're looking for homes under 750, you'll get more eyes on it. And if you get more eyes on it, you can bring more demand to your house. And what can happen, like we said before, if you bring more demand, more eyeballs, more people that want to come look at it, more offers, higher price. So all to say, if you're like, I think I'd rather list at 760, and if we need to knock the price down, just know that a secret spot right now in Coppell is under the $750,000 range. That's where the majority, in fact, basically 70% of all buyers are looking right now in Coppell. Let's keep looking. Okay, this is a fun one. So these are the neighborhoods where the most movement actually occurred in Coppell. So if you see your subdivision listed here, you probably have some new neighbors, and you might consider going and dropping them off like some sourdough bread or some cookies or something like that. So first, coming in at, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Seventh place is going to be the Villages of Coppell with 10 transactions that happened in the last year. Then at sixth place, we have the Villas at Lake Vista with 11. And then we have Braywood at 12. We have Willowwood at 14 transactions, Parkwood, 14, Woodridge had 20, and then North Lake Woodlands actually had 38 transactions that occurred in the last year. So all being said, if you live in the North Lake Woodlands subdivision area in Coppell, you probably have a new neighbor, which would be fun to know. Okay, let's keep going. This is a graph that shows us the amount of homes that sold per month in the last year. So June of 2025, there was 21 homes that sold in Coppell. In June of 2024, this is also, as I'm recording this, it's June 19th, so we're not even done with June. There's already been more. There's been 24 homes that have sold already, almost one a day in June so far. So this number should keep going up. But June to July, so this basically doubles. So this doubles. June to July of 2025, that doubled. And then August, we're still at a pretty high number of 36. And then September, we're at 27, and then October 28, November 14, December 18, January 25, February, this is 2026, 21, March 25, April 36 is really where it starts really kicking off, and then May 46, and then June, we're at June 19th, and we're at 24 right now. So super, super interesting stuff. So if you're wondering where the least amount of transactions occur in Coppell, it's going to be in November, statistically. That's, at least in the last year, that's when it happened. Every fall, end of year, entering into winter is going to be the least amount of movement that will occur in Coppell. That was 14 transactions. And as we know, it's the spring season. Look at that. Look at all that growth. We go from 25 in March to 36 in April to 46 transactions happening in May. Pretty wild. Okay. I want to specifically speak to the first-time buyers that are watching this. So people might think that Coppell, it's so expensive. I mean, I've sold homes in Coppell for over $300-something a foot, right? Which can be pretty ridiculous, especially if you're a first-time buyer. That can translate, to a smaller one-story for $500,000-$600,000 range, which a lot of people can't afford right now if you're a first-time buyer. But Coppell can actually be more affordable than you think. So I dug into this. So 31% of all homes that sold in Coppell, they actually sold for under $500,000. So a third of all homes that sold in the last year in Coppell sold in the 4s or less. Pretty interesting. The lowest price sale all year actually was $200,000. Okay, it was a condo, but still $200,000. You could have bought a home in Coppell in the 2s. That's pretty wild. So the median price of a Coppell condo in the last year was $241,000. So if you want to go to St. Anne's or if you're, want to be super close to Jay Macklin's, but you can only afford a home in the 2s, just know that it actually is possible. You can live in a condo in Coppell and get in there in the 2s. Pretty wild. Okay, so for your first-time buyers, let's look at the specific neighborhoods that you actually could have a good chance of entering in if you want to stay underneath that $500,000 range. So the Coppell median of price we know is $630,000 for a house. These 4 neighborhoods, the median price of those neighborhoods is going to be under $500,000. You'll see that one of them is actually in the 2s. Kind of crazy. So first, Woodridge. So if you're a first-time buyer, you can look in Woodridge where the average or the median sales price, was $427,000. So you can get into Coppell in the low 4s. In Willowwood, the median sales price was $430,000. In Summer Place, the median sales price was $442,000. And at Meadow Ridge Condos, the median sales price was $225,000. So if you were a first-time buyer and you want to be in Coppell, just know that it really isn't impossible. And here's the data. Okay, and then here are just some things that I wanted to show you as a first-time buyer, I call it the buyer playbook, just 3 points that you can have to look at and just know before you actually start looking at homes in Coppell. The first thing is to come pre-approved. Oh, you can't really see that. The first thing is to come and be prepared to be pre-approved before you actually start looking at homes, because entry homes, they still sell in about 3 weeks or so. So if you see a home that's on the market that's going to be in that price point of under $500,000, they're going to sell pretty quick. So if you're going to be looking in that price range, we just want to make sure that you're prepared. So if you find the home that you like, you can actually move on it. The second thing, I thought this is actually pretty interesting, is that you can, if you want to save money, a way to save money in Coppell is to not look for homes with a pool. Because on average, homes that had a pool on it ran at around $780,000 or so, versus homes without a pool were right around $511,000. So obviously a pool isn't worth $200,000, but at least the homes that are selling with a pool in Coppell are going to be quite significantly more expensive. Also, homes in Coppell, we know it's an older community, right? So there were only 2 new builds that sold in all of Coppell last year. Everything else is going to be older, but that's okay. There's a couple neighborhoods. There's one on South Coppell Road. There's a neighborhood back there where some people are tearing down some homes and building up some brand new ones. But for the most part, the homes are going to be older. So all to say, it's good to get an inspection. All right, let's look at the first-time seller. So if you're in Coppell and you've been in your home and you've been writing out the equity, I have something for you. So as we called it before, it's just really important to price your home well. And let me show you the data of why. So as we said before, 31% of homes sold at or above the asking price. So a third of the homes either sold right at what the seller wanted and or more than that. Really interesting stuff. But also, by basically the same number, 33% of all homes actually had to underprice their home. They had to drop their price after they went on market. So all to say, if you want your home to sell for above asking, you have to price it right. If you want to not sell it at asking or above asking, you price it wrong. And so this is just saying that, like, buyers in Coppell, they're not going to pay over what the home is actually worth. They're going to pay for what it's worth. And if it's listed at what it's worth and a little bit under, it's going to drive demand. And then at that point, when there's competition, they might be willing to actually pay for more than what it's worth. But if there's not competition and you're overpriced, you as a seller are going to have to drop your price, and the data shows it. Okay, this is a really interesting one. Sellers in Coppell, listen up here. So I did this data, and what this is saying is that this percentage is showing the percentage of homes in a certain price range that are selling at or above the asking price. So under $500,000, 24% of all homes are selling at or above the asking price. But what you'll find is that as you actually increase in sales price, the leverage for the seller actually increases in Coppell. Pretty interesting. So between $500,000 and $750,000, 30% of all homes sold at or above the asking price. Between $750,000 and $1 million, 35% of all homes sold at or above the asking price. And then what's really wild is that 41% of all homes that sold over $1 million sold at or above the original asking price. So kind of in Coppell, long gone are the days where if you have a really expensive home that you can list it and people will just kind of undercut you. What's interesting about this data is that the more expensive your home is, the better the chance that someone is willing to actually pay for what you want, if not more so. Kind of wild. And then these are just some 3 points that I broke down for the seller playbook. So if you're a seller, just 3 things I wanted to really drill into your brain here. So like we said before, $750,000, about 70% of all homes in Coppell are selling below $750,000. So it's actually better to, if you're right on the line, you would get a better demand pool by listing your home initially at $749 versus $765. Also, we saw that the best time to list your home in Coppell is going to be in the spring. We all know that, but they're selling in the spring statistically between 6 and 12 days. Pretty wild. And then, as we've talked about a lot before, pricing is everything. So if you price it well, you will sell it fast. And for what, if not more than what you're expecting. And like I said before, if you're in Coppell right now and you don't know what your home is worth, I made a custom GPT that can help you actually understand your home's value. Just click the link in the description. I'll give it to you totally for free. And then also, if you're thinking about actually moving to Coppell or selling your home in Coppell, I would be so honored to serve you. I actually grew up in Coppell. I don't know if you guys know that. I grew up in Coppell. I went to St. Anne's, and I know the area like the back of my hand, and I'd be so honored to serve you. Just click the link in the description below to book a call with me, and I would love the opportunity to serve you and walk you through your next transition. God bless you guys. Peace, and I'll see you in the next video.